Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is R.S. Raghu, and with me is Renuka, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment, and more. The headlines. India-Thailand Joint Commission meeting concludes in Bangkok today. Political, economic, defense, and health issues discussed. Home Ministry of India says no directions given to provide flats to illegal Rohingya migrants in New Delhi. Textile sector to focus on recycling and digitization, asks Indian Textiles Minister Piyush Goyal. China's Sichuan province orders all factories to shut down to tackle power shortage. Britain's consumer price inflation jumps to 10.1%, highest since 1982. US President Joe Biden brings climate change and healthcare spending bill into force. And Indian government undertakes Project Cheetah to re-establish endangered species. The 9th India-Thailand Joint Commission meeting concluded on Wednesday in Bangkok. The meeting was co-chaired by Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Thailand, Don Pramudwinai, and India's Minister of External Affairs, Dr. S. Jaishankar. After the meeting, Dr. S. Jaishankar tweeted that productive conversations were held to further strengthen our all-encompassing bilateral relationship. Both sides also discussed advancing contacts in political, economic, security, as well as defense, connectivity, and health domains. Dr. Jaishankar also said as Myanmar's neighbors, India and Thailand exchanged views on the situation. He said both sides also discussed cooperation within the ASEAN and BIMSTEC. Dr. Jaishankar said that India and Thailand also shared their perspectives on the Indo-Pacific. The Indian External Affairs Minister tweeted that agreements signed on cooperation in health and broadcasting will take the ties forward between the two countries. Dr. S. Jaishankar arrived in Thailand on Tuesday to attend India-Thailand Joint Commission meeting. Both the countries are celebrating 75 years of establishment of diplomatic relations. He began his Thailand visit by meeting the Indian community. Addressing them in Bangkok, Dr. Jaishankar said that India's relationship with the ASEAN has emerged as a key cornerstone of India's foreign policy.
If I were to look at the 5 big economic partners we have in the world, they are the European Union, the United States, China, ASEAN, and the Gulf. Now, within ASEAN, all of you know how important Thailand is. For us today, especially because there is a lot of volatility in the world, it is very, very important that India-ASEAN relations not just do well but actually grow. I think this understanding is there in ASEAN countries. My enthusiasm to grow this relationship is completely shared on the Thai side.
Indian cabinet chaired by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi was apprised on Wednesday of the signing of contract between the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, France on behalf of the International Transport Forum, and the Technology Information Forecasting and Assessment Council, India, to support the International Transport Forum activities on the Indian transport sector. The contract was signed on 6th of July 2022. The activities to be carried out under this contract will lead to new scientific results, new policy insights, capacity building through increased scientific interaction, identification of technology options for decarbonization of transport sector.
India's Home Ministry on Wednesday clarified that it has not given any directions to provide economically weaker section flats to Rohingya illegal migrants at Bakarwala in New Delhi. Delhi government had proposed to shift the Rohingyas to a new location. The Home Ministry said in a release that it has directed the Delhi government to ensure that the Rohingya illegal foreigners will continue at the present location at Kanchan Kunj, Madanpur Khadar. The Home Ministry has already taken up the matter of deportation of illegal foreigners with the concerned country through the Ministry of External Affairs. It said illegal foreigners are to be kept in the detention center till their deportation as per law. The Delhi government has not declared the present location as a detention center, and they have been directed to do it immediately. Indian Textiles Minister Piyush Goyal has stressed on innovation across all value chains in the textile sector. In his keynote address at the 10th edition of Asian Textiles Conference, TexCon in New Delhi on Wednesday, Mr. Goyal urged the textile sector to focus on recycling and digitization. The minister said the role of textile sector has been extremely important for India in the past 75 years, and now it has crucial role in expanding its economy. Mr. Goyal said there should be thrust on high-quality products and scale to meet the growing needs of world market.
In today's Hotspot section, we bring you Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav series special, India's Agriculture Potential and Food Security with Ashok Gulati, former chairman of the Commission for Agricultural Costs and senior journalist Harveer Singh.
Professor Gulati, it's interesting, this book, Modi at 20, Dreams Meet Delivery. And you have written this chapter on agriculture, Modi model in Gujarat, the success story of agriculture in his tenure as a Gujarat Chief Minister, and then as Prime Minister, you have analyzed his tenure at national level also. So, Professor Gulati, your chapter title is Agriculture Good but Can Be Better. Can you throw some light on this theme of your chapter?
Well, let's divide it into two parts. One, Modi ji's tenure as Chief Minister of Gujarat. That I would term as an agrarian miracle, because if we take the base of 2001-2, because he came into power in 2002, and 2001-2, if we take the base and go up to 13-14, which was his last year as Chief Minister, you find that agriculture in Gujarat grew at the rate of 9.2% per annum. This is nothing short of a miracle. No other state, perhaps in the history of Indian agriculture, has grown for 13 years at this rate, annual average growth rate in agriculture. And on top of this, the overall GDP was growing at 9.8% per annum. So I would call this Sone Pe Suhaga. You know, agriculture is a big challenge because it engages the largest number of people, and their growth in income and overall GDP growth, that is nothing short of a miracle. And I would say we need to know the process through which he did that and what lessons it can hold for many other states of India.
So you have divided Prime Minister Modi's tenure into two parts, reviewing the agricultural achievements. So one in Gujarat is 2001 to 2013-14, and then 2014 to 2021. So as you said that Gujarat gives a very good growth in that tenure, 9.2%, and that is a very big thing in agriculture. So what kind of strategy or the initiative taken by Mr. Modi in his tenure as a Chief Minister to get this kind of growth?
So I think we need to go a little deeper to decipher the process, what led to this miraculous growth in agriculture, 9.2% per annum. A few things that I can say. One, the external environment, the access to new technology. You know, when we decompose the growth, we looked at the largest chunk of growth was coming from Saurashtra region, which earlier was lagging behind, and they adopted the new technology of BT cotton. In fact, Vajpayee Shah was the one who had cleared the first GM crop in the country in 2002, and Gujarat's farmers lapped up that technology. And then the cotton revolution that took place in Gujarat, and then it spread to other states of India. And by 2013-14, India was the largest producer of cotton in the world and second largest exporter of cotton in the world. So access to technology and access to markets is the mantra for growth in agriculture. And how Modi ji did the magic was he launched something called Krishi Mahotsav, where all the agriculture departments and all those extension workers for 1 month just before the Kharif crop would go to all the villages. There were about 360 odd Krishi Raths, and to demonstrate the latest technologies that was coming in. And he himself used to launch that in front of lakhs of farmers. This is what the technologies scientists had, but they never used to reach at the land to the farmers. Through Krishi Mahotsav, he mobilized the masses and forced literally
not just the bureaucracy and agriculture scientists of the government to go to the villages to demonstrate the strength of their technologies, but he also invited the private sector. So private sector found that a big vehicle to demonstrate their technologies. So he ensured that the latest technologies in different crops reached the remote test villages of Gujarat. And when farmers were aware of those technologies and they started adopting it, and that led to a massive revolution. Another interesting thing that he did was focused on water. He established something called Gujarat Green Revolution Company in the government, and he emphasized 2-3 things. One was the drip irrigation, on which literally 70% subsidy was given. And the second was check dams. Hundreds of thousands of check dams were established all over Gujarat. Then he launched a campaign, Khet Talawadi, where he asked each farmer 5% of his cultivable land to make a little tank there so that when it rains, it can catch the rain and recharge the groundwater. It's amazing when all over India the groundwater table had been going down, but in Gujarat in 2004, 97 talukas were only safe for groundwater irrigation. But by 2013, 175 talukas, which was literally 78% of the sample that was drawn all over Gujarat, they were safe. So I think more crop from every drop of water, that is ingrained in his mind and which was reflected in all the initiatives. So this is something we need to know, not just having big reservoirs and canal irrigation and flood irrigation. We must utilize our water very, very carefully, and the same water can give you double or triple the output.
As you mentioned, that BT technology was one of the big things to transform cotton production scenario in Gujarat. Other states also adopted around the same time when first time in Vajpayee government allowed BT seeds to be sown. Varieties were released. And Maharashtra and Andhra were also part of this variety to use, and even after that Punjab and northern India. How these other states were not able to match the productivity level or to achieve a better growth? What was the reason behind that?
This is very interesting question that you have asked. Gujarat focused on giving irrigation. Today, almost 60% of cotton being grown in Gujarat is irrigated, compared to only 3% cotton area being irrigated in Maharashtra. So the productivity levels in Maharashtra are almost half of those in Gujarat. That is the big difference. So the seed can be the same, but if you don't have assured irrigation, then you can't apply proper fertilization and your yields remain very low. I think seed is a miracle, but that needs to be supplemented by proper irrigation and proper fertilization, and only then it can give you better productivity, higher productivity. But when productivity goes up, you need markets. Otherwise, the prices will collapse here. So you need to keep the borders open for exports. If your domestic industry cannot absorb, you must get the best markets globally. And that is what happened during that period, which led to a massive change and transformation in Gujarat, but not as much in other states.
Professor Gulati, if you go to the second part of your chapter, basically the tenure Mr. Modi is playing as a Prime Minister and in agriculture, you mentioned that at national level, the growth is 3.5% and the previous term was 3.2%. So here there is not a very big difference basically in terms of numbers. So how do you see this?
When you are a chief minister, then the sector is fully under your control, because agriculture is largely a state subject. Although Green Revolution and even Milk Revolution were brought by the strategy advised at the center. So even Cotton Revolution, the policy decision was taken at the center. So center can do a lot of things, but then at the end of the round, it is up to the chief ministers of various states. How do they implement those policies? Mr. Modi did try to get into that in a mode starting with, when he became the Prime Minister, there were 2 years of successive droughts, 2014, 15 and 15, 16. And despite that, if you look at the growth rate achieved during the Modi period, marginally higher than what the long-term trends had been before that, but not anything miraculous. And that's because all other states need to pitch in. One, onto the access of best technologies and Krishi Mahotsav type extension campaign. Secondly, the focus on water. Although at the center, they did try to list about 99 major projects in which they said that, there will be no dearth of money and we must complete these projects as early as possible. And quite a bit of that achievement was made. As a result, some irrigation has increased. But, center for agriculture growth can take some big policy decisions.
Professor Gulati, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
In China, Sichuan province has ordered all factories to shut down until Saturday to tackle a power shortage in the region. There is a blistering heat wave across the country that has sent power demand soaring and dried up reservoirs. State media reported that the province announced industrial power cuts to 19 cities and prefectures from Monday to Saturday. Sichuan is China's lithium mining hub and a key manufacturing location for the semiconductor and solar panel industries, and the power shortage will hit factories of Apple supplier Foxconn and Intel. Several Chinese companies have warned their production could be affected by the Sichuan power cut. The extreme heat in China has also caused crop failures in many parts of the country, adding to inflationary pressures last month. Chinese authorities issued new guidelines to promote population growth amid falling birth rate. In a rare occurrence, a total of 17 Chinese government departments on Tuesday jointly released a guideline on support policies in finance, tax, housing, employment, education, and other fields to create a fertility-friendly society and encourage families to have more children, as the country's latest three-child policy found less traction among the population in childbearing age. China's National Health Authority said on Tuesday China will discourage abortions and take steps to make fertility treatment more accessible as part of efforts to boost one of the world's lowest birth rates. The authority said it would carry out a reproductive health promotion to enhance public awareness while preventing unintended pregnancy and reducing abortions that are not medically necessary. China's fertility rate of 1.16 in 2021 was far below the 2.1 OECD standard for a stable population and among the lowest in the world.
Taiwanese F-16 fighters roared into the night sky on Wednesday in a show of force in front of the media. The fighter planes demonstrated the military's determination to defend the democratically governed island in the face of days of Chinese war games. China, which claims Taiwan as its territory, has been carrying out military exercises around the island after a visit earlier this month by U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Her visit was followed by 5 U.S. lawmakers on Sunday and Monday. The government-organized trip to the key Hualien Air Base on Taiwan's mountainous east coast was the first to a military facility since the Chinese exercises began. Reporters watched ground crew demonstrate how they rapidly upload weapons onto F-16s, including Boeing company's Harpoon anti-ship missiles. In Britain, consumer price inflation jumped to 10.1% in July, the highest since February 1982. It becomes the first major rich economy to see price growth hit double digits as surging food costs intensified. Despite warning this month that a recession was likely, the Bank of England raised its key rate by 0.5% to 1.75%, its first half-point rise since 1995. Britain is not alone in facing soaring price growth, but it is the first in the group of 7 economies to experience inflation about 10%. Many economists believe US inflation has already topped out after it dropped to 8.5% in July from a 4-decade high of 9.1% in June. British Finance Minister Nadhim Zahawi said fighting inflation was his top priority and the government was working on options to reduce household energy bills.
U.S. President Joe Biden has signed a massive climate change and healthcare spending bill into law. The climate healthcare bill aims to bring changes in the way medicines are priced. According to the White House, $740 billion bill is the biggest commitment to counter climate change in the history of the United States. The sweeping bill allocates more than $300 billion to be invested in energy and climate reform. It is the largest federal clean energy investment in U.S. history. The law will also cap prescription drug costs at $2,000 out of pocket annually for Medicare recipients. It is expected to help nearly 13 million Americans in paying for their health care insurance. The House of Representatives on Friday approved the measure on a party line 220 to 207 vote. It was passed the Senate with Vice President Kamala Harris breaking a 50-50 tie in that chamber. The Government of India has undertaken the ambitious Project Cheetah, which aims to re-establish the species in its historical range in the country. Reintroduction of wild species, particularly the cheetah, is being undertaken as per the guidelines of the International Union for Conservation of Nature. The Environment Ministry said processes like disease screening, quarantine of release candidates, as well as transportation of live wild animals across continents require careful planning and execution. It said reports in certain sections of the media that African cheetahs still stuck in transit are completely unfounded. The Environment Ministry said all precautions are being taken to ensure success of the project. Upon arrival, the cheetahs will be kept under quarantine and observed before release. While the agreement has been signed with Namibia, the process of signing of MOU with South Africa is underway.
NASA's new moon rocket arrived at the launch pad on Wednesday ahead of its debut flight in less than 2 weeks. The 98-meter rocket emerged from its mammoth hangar late Tuesday night, drawing crowds of Kennedy Space Center workers. NASA is aiming for an August 29 liftoff for the lunar test flight. There will be 3 mannequins, test dummies, inside the crew capsule atop the rocket, swarming with sensors to measure radiation and vibration. The capsule will fly around the moon in a distant orbit for a couple weeks before heading back for a splashdown in the Pacific. The entire flight should last 6 weeks. And now let us listen to our special segment Potpourri. Pandit Jasraj has enthralled the music lovers world over. His legacy includes memorable performances of classical and semi-classical vocal music, classical and devotional music, albums and film soundtracks. Today happens to be his death anniversary. Pandit Jasraj taught music to amateur and professional students in India, Europe, Canada and the United States. The Government of India has awarded Pandit Jasraj with Padma Shri in 1975, Padma Bhushan in 1990 and Padma Vibhushan in 2000. He was also awarded with Sangeet Natak Academy Award in the year 1987. Over the past 75 years since independence, India's largest public service broadcaster, All India Radio, has been the proverbial storyteller for the 1.3 billion citizens across the country. All India Radio celebrating 75 years of freedom with the series Azad Bharat Ki Baat, Akashvani Ke Saath. It showcases the journey of India since independence in various walks of life through the storytelling of All India Radio.
Azad Bharat Ki Baat, Akashvani Ke Saath, reliving the journey of India since independence over the last 75 years with All India Radio. Starting 15th August, the series will be broadcast on All India Radio, 100.1 FM Gold Channel, primetime news bulletins and across all its platforms. Tune in to stay updated with All India Radio.
In today's episode, we bring you the story of how the Constitution, the soul of Indian Republic, came into effect.
The Constituent Assembly held its first sitting on the 9th of December 1946. The Constitution was adopted on 26th November 1949 and came into force on the 26th of January 1950. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar said, "The Constitution is not a mere lawyer's document. It is a vehicle of life, and its spirit is always the spirit of age."
Let us leave aside slogans. Let us leave aside words which frighten people. Let us even make concession to the prejudices of our opponents. Bring them in so that they may willingly join with us on marching upon that road, which, as I said, if we walk long enough, must necessarily lead us to unity.
Our constitution provides for parliamentary democracy, universal adult franchise, rule of law, independent judiciary, fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy. The preamble to the constitution lists justice, liberty, equality and fraternity as its ideals.
Our difficulty, as I said, is not about the ultimate future. Our difficulty is how to make the heterogeneous mass that we have today take a decision in common and march in a cooperative way on that road which is bound to lead us to unity. Our difficulty is not with regard to the ultimate. Our difficulty is with regard to the beginning.
Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the architect of the Constitution, had proudly acclaimed that the Constitution of India has been framed after ransacking all the known constitutions of the world. It is a tribute to the wisdom and foresight of the makers of the Constitution that they presented to the nation a document that enshrined fundamental values and highest aspirations shared by the people.
आजाद भारत की बात आकाशवाणी के साथ can be accessed on @AIR News Alerts on Twitter, News on AIR official YouTube channel, News on AIR app, Facebook and Instagram handles. So tune into All India Radio News for Azad Bharat Ki Baat Akashwani ke saath.
Brazil's presidential election campaign officially began on Tuesday. The first round of the presidential elections will take place on 2nd of October. Former President Lula da Silva is leading all polls against incumbent Jair Bolsonaro. He has a 12 percentage point lead over Bolsonaro, according to a poll published on Monday. The survey by IPEC showed Lula with 44% of voter support against 32% for Bolsonaro.
And now a quick look at the headlines once again. India-Thailand Joint Commission meeting concludes in Bangkok today. Political, economic, defence and health issues discussed. Home Ministry of India says no directions given to provide flats to illegal Rohingya migrants in New Delhi. Textile sector to focus on recycling and digitization, asks Indian Textiles Minister Piyush Goyal. China's Sichuan province orders all factories to shut down to tackle power shortage. Britain's consumer price inflation jumps to 10.1%, highest since 1982. US President Joe Biden brings climate change and healthcare spending bill into force. And Indian government undertakes Project Cheetah to re-establish endangered species. And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Venice. And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.